All right. As always, the intro music is always extra credit if you know exactly what that song's from and what game. So we try, and also where in the episode we talk about said game. So extra credit to you guys out there. Welcome back to another episode of the Gaming Academy. What's up, everybody? It's your boy GQAzndood, headmaster of the Academy. We got a stacked show for you tonight, so buckle up because we're closing out January with a bang. First up, we're throwing it back to one of the greatest console launches of all time, the PlayStation 2, as we dive into release on January 26, 2000. In this week of gaming history, who knows? We'll talk about something else. But who remembers those early PS2 days? The hype, the games, the memories. We're all talking about it. I specifically have a story to tell, and I'm pretty sure I've told it before. But that's not all. Tonight's a special one because Nick, aka the Tragically Elite, is back. That's right. Tragedy returns to the podcast, and he's got all the latest gaming news lined up in quick bites. Can't wait to hear it and what he's been cooking from the industry. Also making a return to the tech with Blazing Ace Nelson. This time, Ace is breaking down the Chakram Rings moveset in Dynasty Warriors Origin. So if you love fluid, stylish combat, this one is a deep dive you don't want to miss. And of course, we're bringing you another round of wild, crazy, and just straight up nostalgic retro gaming ads. And yo, check this out. It's going to be a fun, jam-packed episode. So grab your snacks, get comfy, and let's dive into some GQAzndood Academy. Starts now. Boy, that theme just gets me shivers down the spine. So, like I said, the man is back. The guy in the ivory tower, the guy that handles all the news and articles on the show and makes sure that we're not missing on any juicy tea from the industry is your boy, Nick, the Tragically Elite.
Man, what do you mean ivory tower? I'm not sitting in any of that. Can't afford that.
Hey, you don't know, man. I'm just saying, you're the wizard. Minus the power glove.
Oh, it's so bad. Thanks for having me back. Man. Sorry I had to miss out.
No, all good. It's always humbling moment when our info guy is gone, and people miss out on the juicy tidbits of the industry. So,
well, luckily you both stay connected pretty easily.
All good, man. So, you having a good week?
So far, yeah. As some people who were listening before knew, it was my birthday a couple days ago, so I have crossed into a new decade. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. We'll see how the show goes. Maybe that'll make me feel better.
All right, there you go. And that's all, with hopefully, like I said, with all these new releases coming up, there's something to look forward to in 2025. But just one more thing to look forward to is the tech, and the guy hosting it is the one and only, the Blazing, the Ace, and Mr. the Nelson.
Hey, what's good, everybody? Glad to see you all back for another session. I'm looking forward to getting to this next deep dive because we've got some interesting stuff to show y'all when it comes to, digging into more of the weapons for Dynasty Warriors Origins. But aside from that, I'm just glad to be here. It's going to be another fun week, and the conversation is going to be fantastic from what I saw that we got, curated for y'all for the news.
All right.
Yeah, thank God that we have some Dynasty Warriors to talk about. Otherwise, I don't know what Blazing would do today.
Yeah, there's always some. What I remember on your show, what was that with the hooligans back in the day, right? And if Asian Kid is watching, because I know he's going to be here tonight, he's right there. He says happy birthday, Nick. Awesome. Thank
you.
Yeah, the hooligans, it was like a crossover with the Two Asians for You back in like the early 10,000s. I can't remember, 2010s.
Early 10,000s.
Yeah, I can't remember. And there was it was a term that your bro Duder used. Did he have a name, stage name? I can't remember.
That bastard.
That bastard. Yeah, I remember that bastard. He said, he said, what was it? The game was called Trimming China.
Yeah, that's what he called it. He called it Trimming China.
And I was like, wow, okay. Now we have to show up in the episode. So absolutely. But yeah, we got a packed show tonight, guys.
Led to what we now know as the Szechuan chicken incident.
And maybe we'll dig that clip from the archives and post it up on here because I feel like that needs to be brought back up.
We need to bring back up Left 4 Dead then, bring up some of those clips.
Definitely. It's just all a matter of time and trying to see if I have time to clip those things for the show. But speaking of short clips, I found a treasure trove of retro gaming ads, guys. So last time on the show, yo, check this out.
Check this out.
All right, I got to make sure my buttons are working, but like in fighting games, right?
Button check.
We found a whole treasure trove of different retro gaming ads from the early days. I guess that's the nostalgic times, right? And Nick, you weren't here, but man, I challenged everybody on chat to figure out and remember some of the ads that they saw and see if I could find them on the internet. And we found a few. And so if I'll just
are these the ones that they suggested, or because I didn't get to see which ones you had picked, and I know that when we were talking about that whole like section about bringing it up again, there's a lot of retro ads that I remember, especially from like the Atari and Genesis era.
For sure. And speaking of, I'm going to throw this on there right now. And so Genesis does what Nintendo don't. So that's literally what we were just talking about. And this seems to be an ad that like caught on over the ages, right? Because we always talk about this, and I thought this ad was very clever. And of course,
yeah.
Didn't you say like the marketing for Sega of America was like some professional that they found?
Yeah, so that was actually the person we talked about this before, and again, I highly recommend if you haven't, because they have the documentary now, I think on HBO, but the book Console Wars, I highly recommend you check it out if you're a fan of that era of games, because it's written from the perspective of like the people at Sega as they were taking on the giant that was Nintendo.
Yeah, I got that book on my Amazon wish list. I am planning on picking it up so I can,
I highly recommend it, dude. It's great. It's super interesting. It's something that's always been like a part of my life growing up, but I didn't know those details. And like GQ said, once you kind of work in the industry and see the little bit behind the curtain, just seeing like how it was back in the day. Anyway, who they brought in was in order to kickstart Sega in the US, they got I think it's Thomas Kalinske, if I'm saying that right. I apologize, just I don't have it right in front of me, but he was the person that Mattel brought in to revitalize the Barbie brand. So he came from like a toys background, like complete revitalization of a brand, a well-known brand. So he headed
were
up
immediately aiming for heavy hitters then.
Yeah. So if I remember right, he was on like vacation with his family on a beach, and someone from Sega of Japan just like showed up on the beach trying to get him to come work for them. And it was the Wild West, man. A lot has been said in the past, and I can't recommend that book enough just because you get to see how Sega of America and Sega of Japan butted head constantly. So the marketing in Sega of America brought up stuff like this, like directly attacking the competition, that kind of stuff, because they wouldn't normally do that on the other side of the sea, right? So it was huge.
Yeah, I just imagine like this guy in like a suit with like the Chinese like sunglasses that are circles.
Listen, man, it's looking like that scene in Final Fantasy VII where the team rolled up on Hojo while he was chilling on the shores of Costa del Sol.
Exactly. Like, with a Sega logo on his jacket instead of Shinra.
Been summoned by Sega, and he's like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, some of these ads are pretty raw. Like, keep it in your pants.
This wasn't even the worst of it, man. The Sega, I don't know if you brought up like the Sega 32X ad, but that one I remember being pretty inappropriate for the time.
Ace, was it the one that you were talking about last time?
No, the one I was talking about was the Neo Geo.
Oh, right. That's right. We got that confused, but that ad was like, he used to touch me, then not anymore, or something like that.
Oh yeah, no, I remember that one. That one was really funny. It had like a woman in like lingerie in the foreground kind of thing. Yeah, that one was pretty notorious too. But the Sega 32X one was like, Mom, what are those two consoles doing? And they were showing like the 32X like going into the Genesis. Like, geez, okay.
I remember that now. Well, this is trying to load up, but I'll change it to a different one here.
A whole lot of kids had that birds and bees conversation after seeing that ad.
Man, and if you thought it was just like our generation, like pushing back against parents, that kind of like whole thing, Attitude Era, WWE kind of thing, like earlier than that, some of the Atari stuff was like stop playing with your joystick, and they were like hand-drawn ads kind of thing. Like, I have to see if I can find one of those for you if you didn't pull up one of those ones, because those are like despite being like the 70s, early 80s, it was like, man, they're really like leaning into this.
Yeah. I mean, the one that's up that right now, I don't know if you guys see Metal Gear and it says Gear Up. I think that's pretty cool. And it's interesting how it's like Ultra Games and not by Konami. So I think a lot of like kids would be confused, would be like, oh, it's made by Ultra, not Konami. So I thought that was very interesting. As a graphical artist, I appreciated the Mortal Kombat ads because they were so minimal. And they were just like speaking like, you know, what this game was hype because you already knew about it, and so they were just kind of like hoping that like, oh man, this is the hype ad, you know, trying to get you to foam at the mouth to play some Mortal Kombat. I'm trying to scroll down here, and there's a lot, and this is great. I love this.
Look at that ad that I posted in our Discord chat really quick, just while we're on the topic.
Oh yeah, I'll put it up right now. Let's see here if I can drag it over here. I didn't even know this was a thing.
God.
Let's go. That's so insensitive. That's ridiculous.
That's in terrible taste.
Yeah, let's see. Is it loading up yet or no?
Not yet. It's processing.
Man. Okay. Oh man. Yo, this would get some people's this would get some people's hackles raised today.
I know. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Let's see if I can change the file up a little bit differently and upload. I just called it Stevie. See if that helps. There we go. Okay, see, much faster. Oh, it's still uploading. Yeah, it's too high res of a file.
Yeah, sorry. You know, despite being in the 70s, we pulled that high res file. That's my fault. Sorry about that.
Well, this is a giant poster. Keep in mind, right? So, yeah, there you go.
If I could play video games, you bet it'd be Atari. What?
Let's see. And then I think this one was like before that, which is interesting. Viewer aggression is advised.
Nice.
So that's a thing from the past also, like, because it was like viewer discretion is advised. So that's kind of neat that they did that as well. Let's see here. Well, this Shinobi one looks cool for the Saturn. A lot of Saturn ads, which is pretty cool. But yeah, chat, if you have any ads that you remember, I know Asian Kid just said that Smash Brothers ad was really cool on TV. It was super fun. But as far as the magazine ads go, I used to collect a lot of GamePro and EGM, and EGM's been on my feed lately because they just released this compendium. And it's like a pretty much compendium of all the EGM magazines into one book.
A word?
Yeah, so I'll put a link on there somewhere, but it's a very cool. Like, I'm definitely gonna back it. This ad right here comes from PlayStation, more powerful than God. and then for a while, this like Polygon Man was like the mascot for PlayStation before Crash, right? And like there was only like one game he was in, right? And I think it was that All-Star Battle game, wasn't it? Like I think that was the only time that this thing actually made it into a video game.
Hey man, you got to show off the polygons while you have them. 3D was a thing.
Yeah, and I'm also glad he has the Bart Simpson hair, which is interesting. Let's see. Oh my gosh, there's an ad for the N-Gage. Does anybody remember the N-Gage?
I definitely do, but that's only because we worked in a retro store. We got to trade
That's true. That's true. Here's an ad that Ice Cube probably doesn't even remember.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a bunch of fun stuff, and this one's specifically for Nick. I'm going to show this one here. That's our boy.
Yes.
Right,
man. So, his video
that right there,
too.
that needs to be framed and put on someone.
That's a motivational poster right there.
Right?
Yeah, I wish I could have got that signed or something. That would have been really cool.
Just be
super cool.
Be the person that Segata Sanshiro believes you can be.
Yeah, and I noticed like a lot of these Sega ads have this really bold like font. That's like just like the infographics was real with the Sega ad, and they're memorable. You like remember them and you notice them in design.
Well, you gotta match that energy. You gotta match the energy of the person shouting Sega. Yep. It's in your face.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we're not the family. We're not the family company like trying to just
the edgy
games for kids. Yeah, it's edgy.
Yeah, and this right here, I remember this ad specifically in a GamePro magazine. I 100% remember this ad. because I was like, oh, that's a lot of video games. that's little James was like talking about this. I remember. So super cool. Oh man, there's some like European ads here that are probably inappropriate, but we'll show them anyway.
It's after 8:00. It's prime time.
This is from
It's after
Nintendo.
8.
This is crazy. This is like a cologne post,
And
like
for the GBA SP of all things too. Like,
right? It's like the scent is GBA SP. And then I mean it continues. There's like different variations of this. Look at this. This is nuts.
that looks like a cologne commercial.
That's what I'm saying. That's the vibe that they were trying to go for. It's like I don't get it. Like
I don't even know if people knew what they were selling. Even like, like
it's like
okay.
Did they get like the marketer for Prada for this thing? Like
Seriously.
Wow. Yeah. No, that is a different vibe than what we got.
And honestly, it's probably because it's European, right? So it's a little bit different over there. But I do remember this ad in a lot of magazines. I think PSM magazine had this ad, and then I remember seeing this. Like this is super fun. So
Heck yeah, like the other like the play it loud ads. This was like in that same
play it loud. That's right.
Well, I'm thinking of like the ads that I remember. The ones are just like, why? Who thought this up? Kind of thing. Like the Game Boy one that I linked earlier to. Game Boy more fun than a ferret down your trousers. Like, I'm cool. Yeah, no, awesome. The Fear Effect. I don't know if you remember Fear Effect on the PlayStation 1, but that has an ad spread that was a 2-page ad that literally said, "These two ladies put the ass in assassin." Like, that was an ad they ran.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Okay, let's pull up this Game Boy one that you posted. More fun than a ferret down your trousers. That is crazy. That is insane. That is some weird.
Is that an early like Jinko's brand kind of thing? Like he's got a lot of room in there.
This ad just says 1997 to me for some reason.
Right?
It's I don't know that vibe. Oh, what is this? This is cool.
And he got his Jinko jeans going.
Oh, look at this bad boy. You guys remember this artwork? What is that?
What is that game?
It's Donkey Kong Country 3.
3?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Sure. I like how the game is just like so small compared to the rest of that. Like,
I know.
Your eyes are just pulled to the gorilla, and you're like, "What is going?" He's got a nipple ring. Sure.
Exactly. the gorilla is the hook.
And here's a fun one. This was definitely late 80s. It even has like the style of like the video is still late 80s.
Oh my god.
I mean, that's great. I mean, we'll never see this stuff again. I just feel like, first of all, magazine's dead, right? So we'll have to see internet ads for these kind of things. And so I think it'd be fun to see the kind of ads like this on the internet, but the subject types might be a little bit more contained versus the old one. So
yeah, the two that I linked, obviously you probably can't show those, but those were the ones that I remember seeing and just being like, things were wild back in the day.
That's some straight up, you can't do that on television.
So Tragic, do you remember the ad for Davis Cup tennis?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
I did show that on stream last time, and yeah, I think it was censored, of course, because the one on the actual magazine is not censored, which is insane.
No, it's not.
It's pretty crazy. All right, before we move on, I want to show this one more ad here. This is from the Virtual Boy. I think this is super cool, and the fact that they show you a preview of what your character looks like in the bottom left is super interesting. So.
And then the disappointment realizing that the entire game just looks like that.
The backlight be doing things. That's what he said. But yes, that is yo, check this out.
Yo, check this out.
So you guys, if you remember any more gaming ads, let us know. I would love to research them and show them on the stream for you. But aside from that, let's continue to our next segment, which is This Week in Gaming History. Let's boot it up. All right. Apparently we're 56K. It's taking a hot minute. So there you go. All right. So, hey, this is a big one. On the 26th of January in the year of the mighty Lord Crash Bandicoot in 2000. Was he on PS2? No, he's on PS1. The PS2
He had
came out.
games on PS2.
Yeah, that's true. But like, what was like the hot title on PS2 that you had to get? Like, what were they pushing? Ratchet and Clank?
God, launch
Yeah.
on the PS2.
Well, I know one of the launch titles on the PS2 was Street Fighter EX3.
Right, and Dynasty Warriors 2 actually was a launch
Yeah.
title. Well, I remember that because I didn't have a memory card to play it, so I played the same stage over and over again.
A list of the final list of launch games for the PS2, and it looks like the big ones that are going to stand out are going to be Dynasty Warriors 2, DOA 2 Hardcore, Armored Core 2, Midnight Club 1,
and Tekken Tag Tournament.
Yep,
Tekken Tag Tournament, Time Splitters 1, Unreal Tournament, Summoner, Street Fighter EX3, the original SSX, Silent Scope, Ridge Racer, and a couple others as well. But those were like the big ones that I see from the list. Like,
that's a solid lineup. Fighting games, racing game. Are there any sports? SSX, I guess.
Madden 01 technically came out with it. NHL had a game that as well.
Is there any platformers in there? Like, there was no platformers in that. First-person shooters were in there.
I don't see it. I see in Eternal Ring, Evergrace, Orphan.
Oh, wow. That brought me back real quick. Orphan.
I don't see a platformer specifically, but he had fighting, action, sports, or a couple RPGs, Fantavision, which was puzzle.
Yeah, see, that's interesting because I feel like every time there's a release of a console, there's always some sort of platformer that goes.
I think one of the big benefits, though, like everyone knows, PS1 games could be played on it, so you never lost that library kind of thing. It just more so you kind of had to make sure you had your PS1 memory card still.
Yep. The fact that the PS2 was both hardware and software backwards compatible was huge.
And I think the fact, like, to me, backwards compatibility is brand loyalty. Right, so you're not having to give up all the stuff that you bought already. It's like I can still use this, so it keeps you in the family. You know, it's a marketing thing. So.
Yeah, it set us up for false expectations the rest of our lives. We thought we'd be able to play all of our games on the next generation. Not true.
Yeah, can we argue? Can we say like the 60 gigabyte PS3 first model was like the best PS3 ever made?
It was. I mean, that was the one that kept selling all the time. It's all what anyone wanted was that one. It's just you ran out of space so quick, and then they broke down all the time.
Well, yeah, if they're playing 3 types of discs, right? I would say it's a lot of use.
More than, because remember the PS2 played 4 kinds of discs. It had the PS1 discs.
That's right.
It had CD, it had dual layer, and it had the blue back discs.
Oh my god.
So it played 4 different disc types, which is why it was so damn annoying to have a PS2 that would stop reading one disc type. So you had to replace the lens or just buy a new PlayStation.
I think I went through like 3 PS2s and I eventually ended up with the Slim, and I was like, this doesn't feel the same with the Slim. You know?
It doesn't, but I will say I did like not having to deal with the disc tray jamming. Like
Facts. Yeah, out of alignment. Yeah, that was rough. That was rough. And the PS2, I think, is the first time a console for me. I don't know. I might have missed out. That has like the most moving parts, and that was like it's when it started to break more often, right? So. Because like the first one had just a tray that you opened up and closed. This one actually had a sliding tray mechanism that you had to mess with. So
yeah, because we had that, the Dreamcast, all that. So you went to PlayStation 2, Xbox, they all had trays.
For sure. All right. Well, some other stuff that came out this day on the 26th of January, WCW NWO Revenge on the N64 in 1998. Pikmin on the GameCube in 2001 in Japan, Dead or Alive Ultimate on the Xbox in 2004, GTA on the Game Boy Advance in 2004, GTA San Andreas on the PS2 in 2004. Sounds like that was on purpose. The King of Fighters 11 and the arcades in 2005 in Japan. Dragon Age Origins, where it all began, on PC in 2009. Fable 3 on the 360 in 2010, and Red Dead Redemption 2 on the PS4 and Xbox One in 2018. Wow, that game is already 8 years old? More.
Yeah, we still haven't gotten GTA 6 yet, and then we're gonna have Red Dead 3 on the other end of that. Another decade from now, I'll be celebrating another decade birthday before we see that one.
And that's kind of I was like the other day I had a thought of mortality, and I was like, I live in a time where I saw Final Fantasy VII remade on better hardware and voice acting, where the gameplay videos are better than the cutscenes of the original. And I was like, that's an amazing time to be living. That's all I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
my
Yeah,
my
don't think about mortality in that, man. I've gotten to the point now, like people who unfortunately have to deal with terminal illnesses and they want to
yeah.
like see their favorite movie series or their favorite video game series the next release before they pass. Like I've started thinking about like, am I going to pass before I get a chance to experience these
Mhm.
things? And with Rockstar's turnaround time now, that's a very real possibility.
It's true, man. That's why you gotta get those health goals up. I'm guilty of that. I gotta get into that as well. Um, my highlight for this section was the PS2 console because I did have a story for that. But WCW and WO Revenge was probably the game that I played the most with in high school on the N64 with my friends. We would always load this up after high school and just fight each other and beat each other with chairs, and it was like a simple, stupid, fun game. You know.
Simple, stupid fun, and the best like three
It's the
releases
best kind
for
of fun.
me were that and WrestleMania 2000 and then WWF No Mercy. Those
Mm,
three games on the 64, like hours of entertainment. Like they just kept getting better, and No Mercy was just kind of that like consolidation of all the really good ideas from the other ones. But yeah,
yeah.
it started with Revenge for me, but I got
Yep.
the other two. You got to create your own characters, their own move sets. You got to live that dream.
Yeah, yeah. The create a character thing was huge. I remember making a character called Pebble, which was Baby Rock. I mean,
Do you make him super short?
he was just like tiny and malnourished. His
Oh no!
and his
Oh
lore
no!
was, and then we just made up lore for this guy, and we are just like, this is before he became a WWE star or WWF star.
Oh my
Put him in
god.
the ring.
Yeah, exactly. And then progressively, as he beat more people, we created another character, which is like, getting bigger and bigger before he became the Rock, the
Oh,
Stone,
perfect.
like yeah, stuff like that.
And his evil origin story. It's great.
Yeah, his evolution to the Rock, pretty much. Yeah. Before we talk about our PS2 stories, I see some highlights here from both you guys. So, Ace, what you got for King of Fighters 11?
Well, I mean, KOF 11 was pretty. KOF 11 was pretty big because, much like 14, it felt like SNK was, it felt like SNK was starting to make their big bounce back from bankruptcy. Even after KOF 2001 and 2002, they were still kind of in that Eolith dark age. But once basically once the Dreamcast had, flourished and the Naomi and the Atomic Wave hardware really started hitting the arcades and producing some rather high quality content, that was when SNK, basically, jumped back in and said, "Hey, boom, KOF 11." And people are like, "Okay, first off, what happened to the year? What's going on?"
Yeah,
Because
sure.
that was the first game where they stopped doing the yearly iterations, which was big in and of itself. But then, again, just the returning characters, the new characters that were brought in, like Oswald, the deep cuts that were brought in, like Jazu and Sho from Kizuna Encounter. Like it was a further progression of the arc that they started in 2003, but still this massive celebration of SNK, of SNK gaming lore, like almost as massive as what would be considered, the lineup of strikers in KOF 2000.
Mm, mm.
And
Yeah,
of course,
and I did notice that like they used to go with years, and 11 was the first time they stopped doing that. So that's really interesting.
the last time I played KOF 11 on a cabinet was actually at the Regal Cinemas out in San Bernardino, and
Ooh,
when I went back out there in 2018, somehow my high scores were still saved on that.
the battery didn't die in the machine. That's good.
Nope.
That's good. What is it? Andre says we will be old by the time GTA 6 drops. Yeah, that's true. I'll definitely be old. Another old game, Dragon Age Origins. I mean, I have a story for this, but Nick, I'd love to hear yours.
No, I want to hear yours because
My,
I could talk about it all the time,
sure,
and I'd
sure.
rather hear other people's stories.
Matter of fact, I think my story relates to your story because I think the only reason I played it is because it was peer pressure from you guys.
Yeah, that sounds
Working at
about
the
right.
store.
Sounds
And
similar to like every time we talk about a Bioware game. Aren't you playing Mass Effect this year because we won't shut up about it? Anyway, continue.
yeah,
I mean, hell, I played Dragon Age Origins, on recommendation from that bastard, and we even reviewed it.
yeah. No, that's cool, and it's good to hear that because Dragon Age was one of those games where I'm not really huge on the Western RPG, especially during that the generation of systems. I was super huge on the action RPGs made by the East, like Devil May Cry and stuff like that, right? I think I wasn't really sold on it as far as like visually. I was like, this looks kind of a generic like PC game, right? That's very common in that time, especially before that era. There was a lot of like third person Western RPGs. Like for some reason, like I lumped it in with Viking. You guys remember Viking on PC, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, that just looked like that game. It looks generic. It looks plain, right? But that's one of those things where visually it may not be stunning, but then when you play it and you engage in the story, and I say that with high emphasis, gameplay and story, like the writing is really good, the characters are good, and the fact that your choices matter in the longevity of the game made it very engaging and it made it feel that I mattered in the game. Like my decisions make, my relationship with the people around me makes, and and it was like I got to play the second one. I got to play the third one. I got to finish my dang story, right? So, and I think this is why Dragon Age seems to be a really big hit. Also, I think I'm a big fan of someone comparing games to like other pop culture references. Like, I think I heard Dragon Age Origins was like Lord of the Rings, right? And there's definitely a scene in there that was very Lord of the Rings like. And I was like, this is sick. I'm in. I'm all about it. And then the fact that the story was different than Lord of the Rings, actually much darker. I was definitely, I was in. I was committed to it. And you can't really know the story unless you play it. And that's one of those things that Nick said, I want to play it first before I make a decision. And that's my experience with Dragon Age Origins.
Yeah, a couple people popped up in chat as well, said the same things, and a couple things that I usually hit when I talk about this game. The reason it's kind of important to me, kind of similar to you, during that time I didn't play a lot of Western RPGs. It wasn't really my thing, but I loved BioWare games. So, like Andre called out in chat, like KOTOR, I loved KOTOR, and I could see the building blocks going into Origins. That's why I wanted to check it out. The whole idea of like influencing the story and getting to know your companions, like those were the building blocks of the previous couple titles that made me want to play this, even though it wasn't my typical go-to. I would say that I really didn't get into those kind of RPGs until I played Origins. And Origins was one of those ones that the reason I wanted to call it out, it was a complete experience for me. Like the soundtrack for that, I still have on my Spotify playlists. Like it is still iconic, especially compared to the soundtracks of 2 Inquisition and Veilguard. Like to me, they're forgettable compared to Origins because of that deep, dark fantasy world that is built in that. It's so deep, and similar to Mass Effect, it had like a codex with like world building built into it. And the moment you got to look at the map and see that Ferelden on this map, that where you just spent the massive amount of hours of this game, is like this little piece of this giant world map, and you're like, oh, I can't wait to see the rest of this series to see where the world's going to go. You felt invested in that world, and it was massive, and there really wasn't anything that sold that experience like Origins did. I got to meet the composer for that as well at a meet and greet. So yeah, I Origins was one of those ones that it just kind of hit at the right time. Mechanically, it was one of those things, like I was playing WoW at the time, so like the turn-basy kind of combat with like 1 through 10 button clicks on PC reminded me of like World of Warcraft combat. You have auto attacks and then special attacks. You have different skill trees, that kind of thing. So it was like an easy jump and definitely a thing of the era. But it played like an old school PC burn title. You didn't have a lot of games like that at the time. It was slow, it was methodical, it was kind of a slog to get through. You had to really think about it. You had to go into tactical sometimes. When you run into that first ogre at the top of the tower at the beginning of the game, that was the first time you get killed for a lot of people because it's like a huge spike in difficulty out of nowhere. And you're like, oh, I can't just mess around with this.
That's the filter.
Now you're playing Dark Souls.
Yeah. It's just different. And I know there was a question about, because some couple people in chat know that I'm a big fan of Dragon Age, and that's one of the reasons a lot of people call back to Origins when they get into something like Veilguard, because it is such a departure from that dark fantasy world that people fell in love with in the first place, or gave this, like we talked about earlier, a weird impression of like, oh, every game is going to be like this. But as time goes on, development teams change, industry changes. You can't go back and really like bring that forward as smoothly as you think. So yeah, I mean, we'll talk about Veilguard at a different time. To answer it briefly, I started it. I loved at the start, and then it really went downhill for me as I started to get more and more into it and spent more time thinking about what made Dragon Age good. As a Dragon Age game, it's awful. As a action RPG game, it's pretty good, for what it is, but you can't say it's a Dragon Age game. It just doesn't feel that way.
And it's good
to answer your question.
Yeah, it's good that you can make that distinction too. So I love that.
Well, unfortunately, I think you have to make that distinction as a long-term fan, at least. And everyone's experience and approach to those stories are going to be a little different. I fully understand that. Just for me and my own personal thing, that's just what I think.
Yeah. All right, chat. Type in your PS2 console nightmare story. I know a lot of people were camping out for this thing. This was during a time where chips were rare, right? There was a lot of shortage on the PS2 on release. So tell me how you got your PS2 in chat. Would you get it for Christmas? Did you have to wait in a line? And with that said, I want the faculty here to share their story, how they acquired their first PS2.
My first PS2? Real simple. It was actually...
It made me cough.
Funny enough, it was during a time of the year where I was dealing with, a lot of sinus issues. But my first financial aid check from when I was
well spent. Good start. Go on. Sorry.
Listen, before I even got the PS2 though, I had actually bought my own copy of Bloody Roar 3. Because, one of my friends had it, so I'd take Bloody Roar 3 over to their place, cook everybody with Bakuryu and Long, and, have a good old time.
What year did you get your PS2?
I got it in 2001.
2001, okay.
So yeah, it was late 2001. Like I said, my first financial aid check, so it was like, God, I want to say November, actually right around my birthday that year. Like, literally, that was my 18th birthday present to myself. I got the PS2, Final Fantasy X, picked up a copy of Tales of Eternia and Mega Man X6 for the PS1, so that way I'd have some extra stuff to play, and then a couple of DVDs to watch on it too. I got the Tekken Man Blade 2 collection and Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust.
That is the most 2001 story I've ever heard.
Damn right. I went to Selling Post for that shit.
That is a product of its time, indeed.
I bought Blood Rain and Disturbed.
Watch Tekken Man. So, that's great. Love it. What about you, Nick?
I don't really have a horror story, and I didn't get my PS2 anywhere near its launch. I bought an Xbox, so I went that direction because I didn't have a PlayStation back in the day. So for me, it wasn't an easy jump to like get a PS2. I mean, when that came out, man, like I was still in high school. I got the Xbox. That was my choice that I could get out of my parents, right? I didn't get a PS2 until I started working at a retro video game store much later. And then I started collecting games and going back and replaying stuff that, my friends would have that I remember. I would say if there's one thing about the PS2 that stands out, if I could say that instead, the game that I probably spent the most time playing on the PS2 was Final Fantasy X. So when I think of PS2, I always immediately think of Titus's laugh in the back of my head. So that in itself is a horror story. But I remember when I was my first year in the dorms up at Western, one of my upstairs buddies who lived like the level above us, they had Final Fantasy X, and I sat down and watched them play from the beginning. And then when I got the job at the retro store later on, that's the first game I bought for the PS2 when I bought it. It was like, I gotta play this for myself now. I just have such great memories of like experiencing that one thing, for better or worse.
Yeah. And 10 is actually like the jump from one or from the next generation from the last, right?
Right. And
That's
honestly, the story of it is what got me into it. You
yeah.
know, say what you will about some of the decisions made in it. Like, it was a pretty iconic story for the time.
No,
It's
and
the whole
it's
reason that a lot of people put up with dress spheres in X2 is because they wanted a continuation and an ending to that story.
I'd say visually too, like 10 was amazing. Like the team, whoever it was during that time that was making RPGs for Square, just knew how the PS2 worked.
Yeah.
So, like 12 Final Fantasy 12 was I was like, wow, this game looks great for like a PS2 system,
I remember getting the boxes for 11 with the network adapter in it. Like,
Yeah, the white
man,
box.
yeah.
I remember that.
And
It
I
was
bought
pretty
I
happy too.
bought the HD collection for 1010 too as well, just because of that. So yeah,
Nice.
that's my connection to the
That's a
PS2.
good pickup.
It's pretty
Uh
crazy to think too. Like, it may not for much longer be the best selling console of all time.
is it the Switch?
The Switch
Taking
is
that?
right behind it.
Okay.
So I think the PS2 was sitting at like 160 million was its final mark. The Switch just passed 146 million.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, and yeah, it's this is why everyone's thirsting for a Switch 2 already. You know, it's been out for a long time. That Asian kid says traded in my N64 collection to get the system, X-Men Dimension, NBA Street, and second Mad Catz controller. You wild animal, you man. We all know about the history of those Mad Catz controllers. Jeez, are they even really controllers at this point?
It's the friend controller when they came over.
Yeah, the Player 2 controller.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a piece of plastic with nubs on it. That's exactly what. But yeah, my story, I've said it on chat, was I was at a Toys R Us, hoping to get a PS2. Cross fingers, I knew it was rare. I was in Chicago with my pops, and in Toys R Us, you grab a little slip to see if they have it, right? And if there's no slip in that little pouch where on the section where they have it, it's sold out, right? So in exchange for my disappointment, I got like a PlayStation 2 game, and I think it was Tekken Tag Tournament 2. For some reason, the games are out before the system, right? And they were out for some reason. You can just buy the games more than the system could. And I was in the checkout line, and the guy in front of me had the last PS2 in the store, and for some reason just did not have the funds to pay for this PS2. And my dad said, "But I do. I'll buy it right now." And the guy was sad, and I was not. I was very happy. So
I
sorry,
was
guy.
not.
Sorry, guy. Yeah, you missed out. But yeah, it was great. Unfortunately, the PS1 memory card did not work on the PS2, so therefore I had to play Dynasty Warriors 2 and Tekken Tag Tournament without a memory card for at least 3 weeks. So it was rough. But yeah,
this one memory card didn't work for PS2 games.
yeah, I found that out too late. Too late, But yeah, that was my story with that. It was just like right place, right time. And I was very thankful. And I think I've gone to 2-3 PS2s with the laser burning out of the CD laser always dying. And I eventually imported one from Japan that was modded, and then that one broke too. And then I got like a weird like a boot. Like it kind of like fakes the booting of a PS2 into like a Japanese. So that was interesting. I forgot what they were called. It was almost like a Game Shark like thing, right?
Oh, the Swap Magic.
Yeah, the swap magic. So that was really cool. But yeah, the PS2 definitely. I have the library behind me is still huge. I'm like collecting all the memorable games, not even the expensive one, just the games I like. Like for example, like Gauntlet Dark Legacy. That's a pretty awesome game on the PS2, right? So stuff like that.
Another little tidbit about my first PS2 was, the PS2 was also the system where I actually got into importing and modding, because like by the time I wound up I forget whether it was that I lost it or I forget what happened to it, but like my first time modding my PS2, I got like this translucent blue shell for it that had the tray, but also had a top loading door, so that way you could swap discs with the swap magic. And I learned real quick how to take that bad boy apart and put it back together.
Fun stuff. You got to do what you got to do to play the games that you love, and thank God for PlayStation making the newest consoles region free. So we appreciate that as well.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary, 25 years, PlayStation. That's amazing. PS2 is 25 years old. I am old AF. Great.
Bonus shout out also on January 26th was I was released. So, that's always nice.
There you go. The birth of the PS2 and Nicholas. Basically the same thing. All right, so yeah, on the 27th, next day, we got a fun game here. Final Fantasy Type O on the PSP was released in Japan. Now, one of the reasons why I picked this title was I think it was the first mature Final Fantasy game ever released in the series. Unfortunately, it was locked on the PSP for the longest time until people kept complaining, and they eventually re-released it on the PS4 and Xbox One later on, years later, so everybody can experience what the game was. Really cool story, but that's another topic to talk about. But I wanted to feature this because it's a very unique one. Like I said, first mature Final Fantasy game, and also I think one of the few Final Fantasy games that was like really, really wanted to be released in the West, but and then we had to like just fight for it, and then it finally got released here on a remake. So from a handheld to a console too, like 2 generations later.
Yeah.
So, a few other games that were released on the 27th. Tetris Attack on the Super Nintendo in 1988 in Japan.
Oh no.
Little Big Planet on the PS3 in 2008. Great soundtrack for that game. Halo 5 Guardians on the Xbox One in 2015.
What could have been?
What could have been?
You had to mention Tetris Attack, though. Now I'm having some straight up Fortunate Son flashbacks to trying to play against my sister in Tetris Attack and having a very bad time of it.
That will do it. And Band of the Hawk on the PS3, PS4, and Vita in 2016 in Japan. And if you're a Muso fan, you'd know exactly what that game's all about. Assassin's Creed Origins on the PC, PS4, and Xbox One in 2017. Super Mario Odyssey on the Switch in 2017. And Wolfenstein 2 on the New Colossus on PC and PS4 and Xbox One in 2017. A lot of variety that year. So, any memories on those games at all, guys? Halo 5?
I have lots of memories in Halo 5, but to make it quick, because I know we got a lot of other stuff to get through and plenty of shows still, the biggest thing for me for Halo 5 is I cannot believe how much we were hoodwinked by that ad campaign, man. The marketing team for that, the whole idea of hunting the truth, hunting Chief, Locke versus Chief, we never got any of that in the game. There was a couple articles that came out recently about it because it was kind of an anniversary thing coming up. So obviously with its release, man, I'll see if I can find that, link it on our Discord, because it is a travesty of what we could have got and what we ended up getting in the end. It's kind of like one of those things that have come to light of that same, like, it's not exactly a bait and switch, but just like the tonal change from what we were sold on and then what we got, the promise versus the reality.
It kind of reminds me of The Bouncer.
Yeah, maybe not as bad as like that. It was still within the universe, but yeah. And the only other thing I had to bring was Wolfenstein 2. I love those Wolfenstein re-releases. I think you and I played
The Old Blood.
The Old Blood, yeah, we streamed the Old Blood back in the day. But New Colossus, I loved a New Order. I brought out the Steelbook for 2 just for the show.
Nice.
I such a fan of these games. I really wanted more of them, and I can't wait to see more. But it's just such a cool game, and to like took it to that next level when you're watching first person view, getting your head chopped off with a sword, like it. Something completely different I hadn't seen before. That just stands out to me.
Did you ever play Youngblood?
Yeah, I did. I wanted it to be better. I think it's one of those things, like it was a problem of the times. They were just trying to push it out so quick and there wasn't enough new ideas. It wasn't bad. It's just nothing new. So it just didn't really like live up to like a new price tag and a new release. It just felt like it did nothing, which is too bad. Because again, like I said, had a lot of potential and it's more stuff in the universe that I liked. It just felt so rushed.
It was just there. Another thing that was just there, Final Fantasy Tactics came out on the 28th in 1998. One of the probably most beloved Final Fantasy games out there, but it's so a departure from its like formula,
Dude, I'd say how many people would come in and ask, can you suggest a game like Final Fantasy Tactics.
Disgaea, Phantom Brave.
And they're like, yeah, but it's not the same. It's like, oh my god, okay,
exactly.
fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, Ace, you were saying?
Oh no, I was just saying like Final Fantasy Tactics. That's not just like one of the most beloved Final Fantasy games, but I think one of the most beloved like PlayStation games. Period.
Oh yeah,
across all 5 generations.
Spoilers: you can play Cloud in the game. That's all I'm saying. So
you can play Cloud in the game, and red chocobos were.
Yeah, but you can play Cloud in Air Guys. It doesn't mean I'm going to suggest that to someone.
I mean, you're not me, but it's okay. God bless the ring, though. That's what it was. Other games that came out that day: Romancing Saga on the Super Nintendo in 1992 in Japan. The second one just got a remake on the newer consoles, which is super cool. Ninja Warriors on the Super Nintendo in 1994 in Japan. And let's see here, Oni on the PC in 2001. You guys remember Oni at all?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, it was
cover art.
Yeah, I remember like Rockstar made this? Weird. So, Resonance of Fate on the 360 and PS3 in 2015. I knew Ace is going to like that one, so I put that on there. And also an oddball Dragon Ball Z title called DBZ Battle of Z on a PS3, Vita, 360 in 2014.
What does the Z mean? What are they battling for?
Zenkai balls, actually.
There you go.
So, Z stands for Zenkai.
Sprinkling a little bit of the knowledge on it. I like that.
There you go. I must have blown everybody's mind if they didn't know what that was. Or like, it's just Z. No, it means Zenkai, actually. Dragon Ball Zenkai. But yeah, Resonance of Fate. Wasn't this like a Final Fantasy Tactics ish, but not really?
No, Resonance of Fate, like that. Okay, best way to describe Resonance of Fate: guns. This was the JRPG that featured a whole hell of a lot of gun crafting and gunplay. Like it was tactical in that you could actually move your characters across the battlefield before actually going into, the turn basis for your attacks. In a way, it was a lot like, say, Parasite Eve.
Oh, cool!
But all the action that played out when your characters would attack, it was all gunplay, and it was insane.
For some reason, I remember like a grid system too.
Yeah, there's actually the grid system was part of the gun crafting.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know it's like one of the more unique games. It actually got a re-release not that long ago. It was 4K, kind of a stealth drop.
4K and HD remaster on the on the PS4. It was PS4 and Steam.
Okay. Red Riot Robots said Resonance of Fate is steampunk turn-based Matrix. I agree with that.
There you
completely. All right. Before I turn to the next page, has anybody guessed what the intro song was? Anybody on the faculty?
Well, I already know what it is because
I think you know already.
Yeah, that's easy for me because we'll talk about it in a moment.
What about you, Ace? Do you know?
Nah, not a fan.
All right.
Really? Well, you're not? Okay. Can I tell him?
Go ahead.
Duke Nukem 3D.
Well, bam, right there.
Easy.
All right. So if you missed the intro to this podcast, we try to play a song that's that we'll be talking about in the podcast, and that intro song was from Duke Nukem 3D, and it was like on the title screen. Actually, I think it was originally from Megadeth called Duke Nukem. So you can actually listen to that song from Megadeth, actually. And yeah, Duke Nukem 3D came out on the 29th in 1996 on PC. I was not allowed to buy it, but I bought it anyway because my dad let me. But
now I know why I didn't quite recognize the track. Because while Duke Nukem was out, I was playing Rise of the Triad.
There you go.
I mean, that's for build engine schlock. You're in the right place, man.
Right?
Jagos, yeah, there's an intro to the podcast. The countdown to the podcast is the intro.
I think you just happened to miss that, Jagos, but
all good.
He played Duke Nukem 3D soundtrack.
Yeah, instantly it was like,
we
we know what the song is. Like, if you know Duke, you know that song for sure. That's like his theme, right?
Got balls of steel.
other games that came out that day on the 29th. Bust a Groove on the PlayStation in 1998 in Japan. I feel like I see this game in arcades everywhere all the time. It's like the new Tetris, pretty much. Panzer Dragoon Saga in the Saturn in 1998 in Japan. Phantasy Star Online on the Dreamcast in 2001. That's a big one. Ninja Blade on the 360 in 2009 in Japan. And a little title called Kingdom Hearts 3 on the PS4 and Xbox One in 2019. So, which one? Oh, yes. Jagos, your jam is Duke Nukem 3D? Awesome. Yeah, my story with Duke Nukem is relatively easy. I played this, like, I wanted something new to play after Warcraft 2, and I went to the PC store, whatever that was at the time, and I'm pretty sure I was in Canada for some reason. And I saw the box, and the box pretty much looks like this, but the Duke Nukem 3D part was embossed. And this was like the most like 1996 thing ever, the 80s action movie box, and it's a video game. So I was like, and it's like, oh, it's like Doom. Cool, I'll check it out, right? I bought it, and then like, of course I played it. My mom was like, "What is this? Is this a strip club?" Like, "Oh, you're not allowed to play this game." Oh, and he swears too, and I was like, "Mom, it's just a game. Who cares?" But my dad was like, "Yeah, it's fine. It's fake. It's not real." I wasn't allowed to play it around my mom. So that's the story. That's it. That's it.
I'm with Jagos too. I loved Bimani stuff. Duke Nukem 3 for me was one of my favorite games that I had growing up on PC. I remember playing a lot. I mentioned it before, Descent. Duke was the next really big one I got into. Same as you, right after like Warcraft and StarCraft. Like Duke Nukem was my 90s game. I played the heck out of it. And kind of like Skyrim, I've owned this like 7 or 8 different times now because they keep releasing like special editions or updates or world tours or different formats on different games, like Total Meltdown. Like, I loved playing that, and it was the same thing where I couldn't play it in front of my parents. I had to wait like they were not home. Like, I got home early from school. I put that on, but I hear the car coming up the driveway, and I have to turn it off as quick as possible because you're giving money to strippers and trying to like save save files so you get the screenshot. Oh my god, dude. Yeah.
The good old days. I see. The good old days. All right. Speaking of the good old days, has anybody heard of this game on the screen? On the 30th of January, Lifeline on the PS2 came out. I wanted to find something so obscure.
Heard of it?
I've heard of it. I've played it, and one of my favorite like videos that the Funhouse crew did while they were still around as they played Lifeline, and seeing them shout into the microphone that was just so bad at picking up voices on the PS2. Like, oh my god, this game was just I could see what they were going for, but man, it did not match what you got to do.
Yeah. So here's the thing. There were games that were released in the PS2 era that they were very innovative at the time, but the tech wasn't there just yet. So if those people that don't know what Lifeline is, it's a voice action adventure. So you were actually given this headset to command your character to do certain things, right? But of course, this was the early, 2004s. It wasn't a big thing yet. I feel like if they re-release this game now with the tech that we have now, this would be an awesome game.
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh, it's very, very easy to nowadays because microphones actually have such good quality. They pick up things so well.
And I mean, games like what's that game where you're like picking up trash on planets, and then you're like, and it's like a horror game that's all pixelated and ugly. I forgot what it was called. Chat, you might know what it is. You guys look like a bunch of Pentium Intel guys. No, nobody on this chat knows this popular game for like $5 on Steam. Clearly, I don't even know either the title, but that is what it is. But anyway, that game has like a what do you call this? Like your voice travels depending how far your character is from the other character, right? So that's like Lifeline is perfect for this type of game. So I don't even remember what the plot was, but Konami has this in their coffers somewhere, and it's like I feel like if they really want to get back into video games and entertainment, they have games like this that they can kind of get back out, remaster, remake, not even AAA, just AA, and it'd be super fun and innovative, out of the normal.
They could do it.
They could do it. Another game that also needs to be kind of scooped out of the graveyard is Rogue Galaxy on the PS2 in 2007. That was an awesome game. Conan Exiles on the PC in 2017. Double Dragon 4 on the PC and PS4 in 2017. I don't know what game this is, but if you guys know, extra points to you guys. Prison Princess on the Switch in 2020, probably a hentai game. And Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League on the PS5, Xbox Series X, and 2024. I wanted to add that on there because the game is officially dead. So, not even a year. Yeah, chat. Prison Princess. Anybody? No. Okay, just making sure.
Yeah. No, I looked it up. It's an escape game experience with cute girls, puzzles, and special events.
It's a normal Switch game. I got it. Got it. But yeah, Lifeline. That was a game I was like, oh yeah, I remember this game, and then like totally forgot about it again. So that was an interesting one. All right, so for the next day, we got on the 31st, Bucky O'Hare on Nintendo was released in 1992 in Japan. I was hoping chat would know who Bucky O'Hare is, so I wanted to put that on there. Fox Hunt on the PC in 1996, Intelligent Cube on the PlayStation in 1997 in Japan, Fighter's Destiny on the 64 in 1996, Mega Man Maverick Hunter X on the PSP in 2006, Devil May Cry 4 on the PS3 and 360 in 2008 in Japan, Smash Bros. Brawl on the Wii in 2008 in Japan, Final Fantasy 13-2 and PS3, 360 in 2012, and a really obscure game called Never Dead on the PS3, Xbox 360 in 2012, Soul Calibur 5 on the PS3 and Xbox 360 in the same year, and the highlighted game of my choice, one of them, was Fire Emblem Awakening on the 3DS in 2013. A big day for gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Andre knows what Never Dead is. Extra points.
I do as well.
All right, extra points for you guys.
I remember the dude taking off his head and using it as a bowling ball to kill enemies.
Yep. It was also another obscure Konami game. So it's like Konami also has like a coffer of titles, just like Capcom, but their company refuses to make video games, so it's okay.
Right.
I don't know if we need another Never Dead though. Like there's some IPs I'm like, it's okay.
I'm just saying they also have their own encyclopedia of characters and catalog that they can leverage from, right? But they're all pachinko games. We know this. So. But yeah, Mega Man Maverick Hunter X is your highlighted game, Ace. And if a game was to be remastered back in the day, this game was the game.
Yeah, that was definitely it. Probably one of the best remasters and remakes that I had seen in a long time, and frankly, it's still up there as one of the best remakes that I've seen since. Because even though everything was like, rendered in, everything was rendered and rebuilt in 3D from the characters to the stages, it still played like Mega Man X. It was Mega Man X with a fresh coat of paint, a new soundtrack, and that animated opening, the Day of Sigma, that told the prologue leading up to the opening events on the highway in Mega Man X. Stellar.
Pretty cool. No, it's definitely memorable. It was also locked in the PSP. A lot of cool games were locked in the PSP until they were kind of like re-released on the PS3 as digital downloads. So that was really interesting. My choice for this day was Devil May Cry 4 and Fire Emblem Awakening. Now, Devil May Cry 4 was like this. There's a lot of pressure on this game because 3 was so good. And of course, this one was the next jump on the next console. This was the first introduction of Nero. And the big scandal in this game was, did we get a lot of game for this? Because I felt like I just played the same game backwards.
No, that's pretty much it.
So, yeah. So I don't know if you anybody in chat has played DMC4. Pretty much you play through the game as one character. And then once you get to a certain point, you switch characters and play the game backwards. I'm not lying to you. That's literally how the game was designed. And it was, I thought like maybe on paper they thought it was cool, but like in application, you just feel robbed. You're just like, I see the same assets and stage all over again in reverse.
DMC4 Special Edition was a little bit of a Band-Aid on that though, considering that, I believe 4 Special Edition allowed you to play as Virgil, Trish, and Lady, correct, as well as, Dante and Nero.
Yep. There was added value. That's what the game should have been if there was the... Yeah. Nick, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say it's crazy because that game is still considered like a critical and commercial success for Capcom, but then it also kind of doomed the franchise. at the same time. So it's so well off the back of 3, but like you said, what it delivered on and what the developers took from that going forward, like
It's
Mhm.
the reason why
from it.
it took so long for Devil May Cry 5 to hit.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true. And I actually enjoyed 4 for what it was. I did feel a little bit robbed the way it was designed, but the special edition like made up for it. The fact that you could play Virgil added a little bit of story and lore within that, which is super cool because I feel like DMC fans are always thirsting for lore, right? We want more, more, more. And so that's it is what it is. And now as far as Fire Emblem Awakening on the 3DS, I typically don't highlight mobile games. I'm not a big like not like on a cell phone, but like handheld games per se. But this one's special because this was the game that was gonna kill Fire Emblem if it didn't succeed. So it has the same story of Final Fantasy on the Nintendo. This team was like, this is gonna be our last game. Let's make it awesome, right? Let's give it everything we got because this is the last chance we're gonna be getting to make a Fire Emblem game. Apparently, the game did awesome, phenomenal game, and it's true. The game was so good. I remember just not being able to put it down. Character design was on point. Combat was on point. There's a little like relationship like chart for replay value, right? And then you were able to create more characters off the relationship of the characters that you had. Super cool game, and you can tell like they put some effort and love into this game. And that's why it spawned more Fire Emblem games on the consoles after this. But this was the game to thank for the Fire Emblem success. Not Smash Bros. Nobody knew who those characters were until Fire Emblem Awakening. So that was my highlight for that one.
I remember we could not keep that game in stock when it came out.
Yep.
Like
It
out
was
of the woodworks, people came out for that game, and people who weren't a fan of the series before picked it up, and it just sold so well. And that got me interested in Fire Emblem is just because of that release and seeing the response to it.
Red Riderbot said budget was basically halved before release, so they had to choose between polishing gameplay or more levels. You know what? I think they made a good choice. Honestly, gameplay is all about DMC, or vice versa. So, all right. If there's nothing else on that, the last day on February 1st, because we land on a weird, awkward week or the day for this month. My choice was SimCity 3 or 3000 on the PC in 1999, which I'll switch over now here. Mega Man X5 on the PlayStation 1 on 2001, Wargroove on the Switch on PC, Xbox One in 2019, and Persona Reload on the PS4 in 2024, just last year in Japan. So not a very heavy day for gaming, but I wanted to highlight SimCity 3000 because it's one of my favorite titles, series of all time too. I randomly play it just to hang out and chill. You're literally just managing a city while listening to jazz music. That's all. That's all I can.
That was kind of like the reason people played it in the first place.
Yeah, it's a chill game, and I still love it. I don't know why. I turn off my brain and I play it. Next thing you know, I have a Metropolis, and people are upset that I don't have healthcare. So just like in real life. Damn it!
I play games to escape. Damn it!
Like, where are my flying cars, Bruce? Where are my flying cars?
This time they're blaming me for it, so that's the difference. So, I put Wargroove on here because I don't remember exactly, but there was a game that was canceled, and that those developers went to work on Wargroove, but everybody wanted the sequel to that game. I couldn't remember what it was, and I didn't get a chance to Google it. So, if chat, you know what I'm talking about, because I remember because Wargroove is a strategy game like Advance Wars, and the game that they made before this was nothing like that. But their budget went to go to Wargroove instead of the sequel. Don't know why, and I don't remember, but I just remember Wargroove being like triggering to me, like, oh man, they made that game instead of the game I wanted. Damn it, you know.
I remember them. That's the dev who did Starbound. I remember Starbound because that was like Starbound was like Terraria, but it was in space, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
They were also, I think, they were the like former Risk of Rain Stardew Valley publishers, if I remember right.
Chucklefish, yeah.
Yeah.
What did they make before? So they made
because I remember them for Risk of Rain and Starbound. Those were like the ones that I remember, but they didn't develop, but they published Stardew Valley. So I mean, you can kind of see the similar stuff that they have in their like background.
Yeah. Okay. I'll do more research. I'll post it on X or whatever. But I just remember like being so upset that Wargroove was the game they picked over something else. I don't know what it was, but that is pretty much this week in gaming history. That was a big week, guys. Awesome. Yeah. All right, Nicholas. The people thirst for the news.
I don't think they do. Everyone keeps up on this stuff. Since we missed the news last week, I apologize that I was out. I had some personal stuff to take care of. I am going to really focus on just some bite-sized stuff, some fun stuff that have been in the news last week and this week, just to keep it on the tip of your brain so the staff can keep up to date if they don't know, and the people in chat can talk about it to see if it's something that they want to talk about. The big stuff right off the bat is now we are hearing rumors about the next God of War taking place in Egypt.
I love it. I love Egyptian pantheons.
Yep. So if you didn't play Ragnarok, there was kind of a little bit talking about that towards the end of the game that kind of like hinted at it. I didn't know this until like looking this up, but apparently Cory Balrog, the guy who created God of War, the main dev, right, originally had planned for the game to take place in Egypt with the Egyptian pantheon, and then decided to go Norse at the end. So this might be a return to like the original pitch idea, which is really, really cool. Again, it's just kind of rumored, but it's kind of like heavily implied that that's where we're going next for God of War. What do you two think about that?
Personally, I think it's awesome. I think Egyptian mythology is very similar to the Greek and Roman mythology. So I feel like this going back to Egypt may actually return Kratos back to Greece in some way or form, like lore-wise and story-wise, because they're so close to each other. And I'm kind of excited. I'm already like little shivers on my spine here.
And considering that a lot of Egyptian mythology deals with the afterlife and specifically the underworld, considering the fact that it does deal with death and possible rebirth, that means we could very well be seeing a return of some familiar foes, or at the very least familiar settings and characters, either coming back to aid Kratos or coming back to give him grief
or haunt him. Yeah, I think that'd be super cool. I think there's a lot of content here for that, like the mythology and just lore. And I think like God of War is fun and all, but like the lore behind it with the mythology is really what captures me. I'm a huge mythology guy, so I just bought Ragnarok, so I'm really looking for playing that this year too. So
is that part of your A to Z gameplay?
It is not, but like I noticed that I'm flying through this list, so I'm taking out the smaller games faster, so I can focus on like Mass Effect and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, no, makes sense. That's one of the reasons. Same thing. I've always been kind of interested in that Egyptian mythology as well. So that's one of the reasons I picked up Assassin's Creed Origins, was just for that setting, just to give it a shot. And although it, Ubisoft games at the time, we feel kind of burnt out on it, maybe didn't have as much like acclaim as it could have. I thought it was a really cool setting, so I'm excited to see God of War take that on as well. Next little piece of bite-sized content, Final Fantasy Rebirth, fam. We've been talking about that a lot lately. It just broke the franchise's single-player record on Steam for most concurrent players.
Wow. On a single-player RPG? That's amazing.
On a single-player RPG, it now has it pinged at just over 40,000 concurrent players for Final Fantasy Rebirth. So if you thought that this wasn't a big game, or if you had your head under a rock or something, man, like this, it's huge. That is actually double the first Final Fantasy VII remake part.
That's
so
good.
It doubled going into that, and there's all this talk about the third one. We did just hear from the devs that they just finished the writing for the third part, so they're moving on to the next part of production. Pretty cool.
I'm ready to cry.
Yeah, I think everyone is at this point. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't checked it out, man. It's pretty big. It's awesome, and even if you weren't a fan of the original 7, like I didn't play 7 back in the day, I had to play it after the fact. It is a really good like reimagining of it, so it's really cool to see. In case you missed it, Xbox Developer Showcase happened. There's some new release dates.
I did watch the release
date. Yep, we heard about the release date for Doom Dark Ages.
Yes,
which is awesome. Coming
just
out
pre-ordered it before the stream too.
Oh, nice.
If you also missed it, another game that we've talked about multiple times, and I know there's a couple people in our chat who have talked about this too. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 also has its launch date. That is April 24th.
The same day as City of the Wolves.
Well, and
Ooh.
as we've said multiple times now, like there's so many games coming out this year and multiple days where there's like multiple releases for each of our fandoms. It's like, what do you choose? What do you go to first?
Right.
Obviously, GQ made his pick. James is going after Dark Ages right away. I'm really interested in Expedition 33. I will say I probably won't pick it up right away because right now I'm kind of going through Metaphor and I need kind of a change of pace
Yeah, that's
before
true.
I jump into that. But
If it helps, quick heads up, I did actually register for the Clair Obscure creators program. So fingers crossed, but if we're lucky, I may at the very least be picking up a review code for that at some point.
nice. Yeah,
So
yeah.
so
That'd be
again,
interesting to see.
fingers crossed, but either way, whether it's a review code or a direct purchase, I'm still planning on picking that up. But back to City of the Wolves really quickly, the deluxe edition that was announced for it. Holy hell. That is a collector's edition right there.
Gotta
You
go
get,
look.
you get the game, you get the Neo Geo case, you get the soundtrack, and I believe you get an art book with it as well.
Hello.
Yeah, that's pretty good, man. A couple other bite-sized pieces of content for you for some news. It's time to relive the nostalgia. You remember how James was saying something about SimCity 3000? We just
Love it.
got confirmation that Sims 1 and Sims 2 is being re-released digitally on PC.
Oh,
And it's
word?
going to be
Ooh.
happening very soon. They do get all of their original DLC. You going to play them? I might, honestly.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Dog, Sims 2 is still like, even with as big fighting and action game fan as I am, The Sims 2 is still in my book literally probably the best and most comprehensive direct sequel to a game that has ever been released.
Yeah, we're coming up on a big anniversary, and I was just watching a couple different content creators playing like the OG ones, like talking about like reliving the past, stuff that they grew up with. I definitely grew up playing the second one more than the first one, but I remember the first one. You see that isometric like camera kind of style kind of thing, it just floods back into your mind. But the
Yep.
fact that it hasn't been available for a long time digitally, I remember for a while there when we were working in the retro store, you could only just buy the discs, and that's like the only way you could get it
With
with
no
their like
code. Yeah.
yeah, with their CD code on the back, and that was the only way you can do that. But now they're being re-released by them just in time. I think they're doing like a 25th anniversary thing for like the Sims franchise. But yeah,
That's
getting all their OG DLC is part of that too. I'll be interested to hear about like the price they're throwing on it, but the fact you're getting 1 and 2 re-released digitally because you weren't able to get it before, like I'm pretty excited for that. Just because every once in a while I boot up Sims 4 still. I don't have the time, energy, money to get all the DLCs for that. So if I can get 1 or 2 with those OG DLCs, like Live and Large, I remember Hot Date as well, like
Or Sims 2
those
University.
Sims 2 Universities included. I saw that on the list. It's pretty crazy.
Value.
Next little quick piece of news. Maybe you didn't know this, but of the top 20 best-selling games of last year, because we just got all the information on the sales figures as far as what games sold the best. This last year, 7 of the top 20 weren't actually new releases.
Are they're all remakes?
Not all of them. So there's a couple surprising ones, a couple not surprising ones. A not surprising one that's still on the list. Again, this is top selling for the year. It's not lifetime. It's sold in that time frame. And we just got these things. But Minecraft is on the list as always.
As always.
As always. That came out in 2011, man. That thing is still on the list that many years later.
The movie's just about to come out.
Right. So I'm glad you said that because there is some games that are new releases that obviously sold really well. We knew Black Ops 6 from sheer numbers is number 1. Helldivers 2 is number 3 on this list. DB Sparking Zero was 4th.
Yeah.
And the typical sports stuff at the top, NBA, Madden, EA Sports FC, that kind of thing. Modern Warfare 3 was
Really?
number 7 on the list. Despite Black Ops 6 coming out and being at the top, Modern Warfare 3 stores still sold incredibly well. Don't know if that's because of the platform, the way that they have it set up. When you click, you get a splash screen for 3 when you play any of the Call of Duty games. Elden Ring number 9. Number 11, Hogwarts Legacy. Keep in mind, Elden Ring, Hogwarts Legacy, not this year. Those were holdovers.
Yeah.
Number 15 on this list. We talked about it a couple weeks ago. Grand Theft Auto 5 is still in the top 20 best-selling games for the year.
That's crazy.
So if you're wondering why they may not have to push it out as quick, that's why.
Shark cards. Yep.
Yeah, we were talking about it. Actually, I want to say 2 weeks ago, we were talking about
Yep.
how it's still hitting like concurrent player records, at least for longevity, this many years after release, because it's still selling incredibly well. Marvel Spider-Man 2 is still on the list as well. Again, that's a holdover, but yeah, it's surprising that there's that many. We know it was a really good year for game releases. We know this next year is going to be really good for game releases. Gonna be surprising to see how many games are a holdover as well. We know GTA 5 probably won't be on that list with 6 coming out, but I guess we'll see.
That's an interesting top 20, because like if no new games were on this list, that just tells me there's been a huge drop in quality of games being released.
Yeah.
That's,
I mean,
that's
there's still some bangers. Obviously,
Yeah.
Helldivers 2 was huge, took over everything.
Yeah.
Dragon's Dogma 2 was 12. Final Fantasy Rebirth is 17th. Tekken 8 is 18th. So, I mean, there's some
almost higher than
titles.
Rebirth. That's crazy.
Yeah. So there's still, definitely some games that came out, but it kind of makes you think about this coming year. Like, we know these big titles, we've been talking about them for weeks on this podcast and other content creators. What's going to break into the top 20? What's still going to stick around? Is Minecraft going to stick around? Most likely. I mean, we'll see.
Minecraft 2 is going to be crazy if that ever gets released. So.
It doesn't need to. Just keeps building on the top of that.
It's a more for minors.
Yeah. And more somber news, we were hearing about more layoffs. Reflector Entertainment, the dev behind Unknown 9 Awakening, was hit by layoffs, but that was mostly due to the fact that their game did not sell well. There's been a lot of reviews on that, so we know it didn't really release in the best complete form. Had a lot of ideas. We also heard just within the last couple of days that Ubisoft is laying off a bunch of employees as well, as they're trying to restructure. And as we've heard, oh man, so many things going on at that company. Who even knows anymore? We'll see what happens, and if Shadows can turn that around, if the changes they made or the polishing they've made will make a difference. But more sad news across the board. All right. Speaking of sad news, I don't know if you're going to post the article for me, James, but someone had mentioned, I think it was Jagos was talking about Sony a little bit earlier. This is a holdover from previous weeks, so if you already know about it, I apologize, but to keep everyone else on staff up in the know, Sony continues to clear house. We know that they're making some changes with live service games. We've heard them canceling 2 big projects. News did break on the 16th that 2 previously unannounced games from Blue Point and Bend Studios. So that was Days Gone from Bend. Our 2 games were completely canceled, and they were live service games. One of them being a quote unquote a God of War live service game was being made.
On. I know what game that is. Can you guys take a guess? No? The multiplayer mode in the God of War Origins.
Oh yeah?
You guys remember that game?
No, I didn't.
So in God of War Origins, you get to pick a pantheon, like Poseidon, Hades, or Zeus, and you're a Spartan that fights for them, and you're in an arena where the other guys, you fight each other and you collect like armor pieces and stuff like that.
Okay.
And the fact that it's made by Blue Point, really, like the developer that remade Dark Souls or Demon Souls, I feel like that could be a good guess.
So Blue Point was in charge of that God of War game. Bend was working on an unknown title that was supposed to be a AAA live service game with a military feel. But this is just basically the latest blow to the live service titles, potentially kind of indicating that broader reevaluation of like Sony's strategy moving forward. We know that there's been a lot of stuff. Like I used to play a lot of Destiny 2 and just seeing where that went when Sony took over and everything. We'll see if that changes. But that is on the back of the article that James had linked there. Sony also, we're talking about a potential game called Project H. Which, as you can see by the link there, that was most likely reportedly a Horizon MMO. I don't know if you've been listening to us a long time, but at the end of last year, we were talking about hypotheticals, like games we'd like to see that have mechanics from other games. My pick was expanding on the idea of the Horizon MMO, because I play a lot of MMOs myself. I love the Horizon world. We went off on a big tangent. I think Blue was in chat at the time. And did a back and forth with me. We're talking about some ideas on it. Well, it sounds like that is now canceled. And from what I'm reading here too, that was on the back of a couple other projects too. According to MTN Reset Era, NCSoft has seen 3 projects canceled: Project Pantera, Project H, and Project J. Project H was the code name for the Horizon MMO, which would later be called Skyline. However, this is not the only Horizon Online, so keep in mind that Guerrilla themselves are currently in development of a Horizon Online. So it's not the same one. It was an NCSoft Horizon MMO. So confusing as all heck. Who knows what they would have done? We know that NCSoft is dealing with a lot of issues right now. Their co-chairman was quoted recently as saying, "Let's create a 2025 where we work to the bone with the idea that if we don't turn it around in 2025, there will be no future for NC again."
Whew. That is they're about to make their own Final
Huge.
Fantasy game.
There's more details in the article. Definitely check it out. But it sounds like this was a decision made at the end of last year, and this is just coming to fruition now. But yeah, more live service and online platform stuff with Sony IPs attached to them are being canceled. What do you two think about that?
If that military-ish game was online service game for like a Killzone title or MAG. That's just me.
Yeah, we were talking about that recently. You wanted MAG back. We don't know.
I'd be so mad if it was actually going to be MAG 2. I'd be like, "Oh, I hate you." That's just me.
But between that and then the talk of them finally solidifying who the new president of Sony Interactive Entertainment was going to be, and the fact that it looks like now SIE is going to be reporting back to their Japan headquarters again.
And it's gonna be like, "What y'all been doing over there, huh?"
It looks like there's a pretty sizable shakeup coming, at the very least, to Sony. And
well, at the very top, at least, I know that Jagos was in chat talking about it earlier with Hideaki back at the top. It isn't so much a gigantic shakeup as it just like a realignment of different things. So Herman Hulst is still there, absolutely still there, but taking over a different part of it, not so much being the one choosing the gaming going forward, because their music, Sony Music, makes more money than their gaming division does.
Oh,
which
yeah.
is crazy to think. Like, absolutely does. So focusing where they're profitable and realigning the gaming side, because as we've seen from Concord, these other like offshoot Sony IP things, like there's been some really like not, I don't want to say forward thinking, but a lot of all in on things that isn't really working for the Sony brand, right?
So yeah, it looks like, if nothing else, we are definitely going to be seeing the results of that restructuring over the course of this year. I feel like the latter half of the year, Q3 and Q4 of 2025, I feel like that's when we're going to start seeing the beginnings of what's going to be falling from the tree now that it's been shaken.
Yeah, it's super interesting too, because we've talked about this before too. But what was Sony known for with this generation was their first party titles and their IPs being so strong. These big, great titles that the system for. There hasn't been a lot of those lately for Sony. There's been some peaks like Spider-Man 2 has been great. I liked. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was about to say, I really feel like as far as what Sony was really known for, their first party titles and their first party IPs, I honestly feel like Astrobot ties into the equation heavily.
Oh, it does now, absolutely, and it's a whole revitalization of the platforming market. But it's like that also shows the stuff they were known for before. They were kind of at the end of these stories for a lot of their big titles, and there's a lot of where do we go next. God of War ending, we're waiting for a new one. It sounds like they're going to Egypt. Horizon Forbidden West had kind of hit a point where that's done, and their DLC was done with it. We don't know where it's going yet. They were making 2 different online things. There's a Guerrilla one and that NCSoft one that was canceled. Like, it felt like they were trying to go in different directions, and they were pulling away from those big IPs because they didn't have the next for that. So it's waiting for something to fill the gap, and luckily Astrobot was amazing and super well made and beloved. But if they didn't have that, what do we got?
Exactly.
I see James shaking his head. What do you got, man?
All I know is also Pie from Hell. Love you, man. The fact that yeah, Mag 2, it would be amazing. Sony's big red button right now, just like Final Fantasy Remake, I think if they have to, I would say it's Bloodborne 2. That's if they announce that, people would lose their mind, right? And so I think that's what they got going on. And I totally agree with you 100%. It's like some of these single player titles have finished, so they are very cautious about where to continue next, right? Like, would we want to see another Uncharted, even though the story's done? You know, it's
I
like,
want another Uncharted because I want to see
yeah,
what they do with it. But I will agree that it's because that story had naturally ended. It's a
yeah.
lot of unknown, so it's not like you're really banking on that,
That,
right?
that's what I
You're,
mean, right? Like
yeah,
narratively and like writing and wise, like it has to be very creative, right? The fact that Kratos is going back to Egypt, like, what's a story behind that besides milking the franchise? You know, like that's kind of the stuff I'm concerned about, and I think they're very protective of that in their single player titles. So I don't blame them for being hesitant in doing that. I think they know they
yeah.
have to do it, but they want to do it right. I totally understand that.
Right.
Yeah, and they have the right studios for it too. It's just whether or not that those studios are given the tools that they need.
Yeah.
Because again, you were talking about before with Blue Point, known for the games that they've done, but they were working on this live service game for God of War, right? It was
Mhm.
like, was that the best for their team? And were they given what they needed to succeed at that before it got where it was and needed to be canceled, right?
Yeah.
Because we have Sony Santa Monica who've done amazing work with the God of War games. So no matter what they do with that, I'm sure it's going to be great. I have no concerns
Mhm.
there. When it comes out, it'll be great. We know that. Awesome.
And,
But
and it, so go ahead.
no, I was going to say with what Jagos is saying and what Andre's saying as well, like talking about Uncharted, is that going to go back to Naughty Dog? Are they going to put it into a different team because Naughty Dog's doing other things now that we're going to Intergalactic? Like there's that concern for me, and I know it's not always realistic to go with the original devs, but if it's going to a different team, even if it's under the same like brand umbrella, it's not going to be the same game. Is
It's not
there's a lot of it's even rockier at that point
a
for
different
me.
product at
Not
that
saying
point.
it can't be done; it just has a bigger hurdle to get over.
Yeah, especially like with what Jagos mentioned. Uncharted without Amy Hennig? That's a bold move, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out for him.
And I agree with Blue Point, like remaking God of War 1, but not in the same form as, like, the modern God of War, the Dad of War. But like if Blue Point can capture that like first God of War game with modern technology, I think that would be super cool. And of course, it's not going to be made exactly 1-to-1 for sure. You
But
know,
considering what's literally just been announced and just released, I mean, with stuff like Phantom Blade Zero, Ninja Gaiden, both Black 2, as well as the announcement of 5 and the announcement of Ragebound, you know, we're seeing a definite return of the more high speed, more kinetic hack and slash action game.
I play
So
Madison Gold.
so a revitalization or just a straight up, full top to bottom remake of God of War 1, it's possible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
possible for sure.
We've taught, yeah, and it's that same thing of chasing trends, like what's hot right now.
Yeah.
Seemed like what what Wukong did, like we're going to see a lot more games kind of in that vein. And there was a lot of games already in development, like you mentioned, Phantom Blade. There was also like 2 or 3 other ones I can't remember at the top of my head.
There's a
But
bunch of like Chinese games that were
yeah,
Sony.
There's Phantom Blade Zero, there's Lost Soul Aside, and Wuchang Fallen Feathers.
Fallen Feathers was what I was thinking of. Yeah.
I think we're gonna see a slow decline of like the Souls-like type games and back to like the the action games.
You want to know what
I'm
action
here
game I
for
would
it,
like
but
to
that's just
see?
because it's not my style. I get why people love it, and I do appreciate the like lore that Guillermo del Toro set up with like the Elden Ring universe. Like I thought that was excellent. It's just not my game. I don't have the patience or time to do that anymore.
No, I feel you.
It just makes me think. One game that I would love to see not only remade, but an actual like complete complete edition with all of the content in it, and not locking the ending behind fucking DLC. Asura's Wrath.
Yep.
Oh man, I don't know, man. That game is rough.
I gotta find a planet. I'll be right back. I appreciate everyone in chat chiming into that, by the way. It's really cool to see.
Clearly, y'all are passionate about
Yeah.
the news, and this is why it's good to have Nick back. You got all the
last little bit that I just want to cover, a little bit more of a thought experiment. We're going to jump to the other side of the console war with Xbox. Phil Spencer sat down with Gamertag Radio and talked about something rather specific. More of their exclusives will be available on other platforms.
I'm here for it.
Straight from the mouth of Phil himself.
I'm here for it, man. Power to the gamers.
Well, considering that it was Phil Spencer that actually sat down with Team Ninja and Platinum Games, and suggested that they come together to develop Ninja Gaiden 5.
Yeah, praise. Oh, they didn't even get their money from Scalebound that they wasted. That's what happened.
But I mean, considering Phil Spencer reaching out like that,
they know what's up.
It feels like the cross-platform spread of Microsoft originals. It feels like the writing's on the wall there.
Well, the writing could be on the wall. It's going to depend on how it shakes out. So what Phil was saying was, specifically, we love our platform and our hardware, but we're not going to put up walls where people can engage with great games. Our studios are, it says, we're not going to put walls up where people can engage with the great games our studios are building. Our games will show up in more places, no doubt. So getting it out there, I mean, it's on the back of what we've known about Game Pass for a while now, making those more available to more people and seeing those crossovers. We already know that Microsoft is going to be working with the next Switch iteration to bring games. Like Nintendo and Microsoft are being much more connected. But the fact that we'll start seeing some of those games on PlayStation 2 is going to be one of those things. Now, some of their main first party games are going to be hit or miss from what we are seeing with this. Like you can still imagine that like Forza, for example, is going to be on Xbox and PC only. You're not going to see that jump to other platforms.
Right.
We still don't know. It's not 100% because there was a follow-up article where Phil was suggesting Starfield could be coming to PlayStation 5 after all. So we might see some more titles like that get spread out as well. More people getting their hands on games that are a little more feature complete now than when they released on Xbox. Who knows? But it's just a super interesting thing to think about. Them wanting people to pick up hardware based on the compatibilities of that and the choices that they want to make about where they want to play, but they're still able to get a hold of some of the games that some of the other ones have. So for you two, I want to ask, with Xbox titles appearing on other platforms, how might this influence, the unique identity or the appeal of Xbox consoles? Because we've seen the ad campaigns recently where like, this is an Xbox, this is an Xbox, this is an Xbox. It's like a phone and like the ROG Ally and the, stuff like that.
Xbox everywhere, basically.
Yeah. Majima everywhere but Xbox.
Exactly. Like literally, you see
that meme. We need that meme made. Yeah.
You see the sewer cover get lifted up, and it's the Duke, the Xbox controller, just rising up out of the mist.
Don't even need that. Just give me like the Xbox 360 circle X like logo on Majima's face as he's popping out, shouting at Kiryu.
Yes.
Just supercut that. Give me the supercut. That's all I need for it. I mean, it's very clear that there is like a lot of consumer benefit to this, and it is kind of like following on the back of industry trends of like broader industry shifts towards like platform agnostic, basically.
Here's
where it's like you can get it anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, here's my thought on this whole thing with Microsoft. The best way I can, I guess put an analogy to it would be like what's going on with the recent release of Virtua Fighter 5 Revo on Steam. And the opening theme that Takanobu Mitsuyoshi wrote for it. He made the deliberate choice to remake one of the tracks from Virtua Fighter 5 and give it a completely English list of lyrics to emphasize that Virtua Fighter is, reaching out more to their global community of players. And it's even being seen on the Virtua Fighter 5 Revo Discord. I mean, hell, one of the big players that I know from watching him in Street Fighter, Ryan Hart, is a Virtua Fighter 5 ambassador. Because, not only is he big in Street Fighter, but, he's also really a diehard Virtua Fighter fan. And just seeing that cross-pollination with, the community and the development of Virtua Fighter 5, it feels like it parallels what's going on with Microsoft and a lot of their Xbox titles so closely. Just this shift to having, like you said, more platform agnostic titles and just more open borders in general.
I think it's great that you're able to play Halo on anything. Can
it play Doom? Can it play Halo?
No,
Yeah.
I just hope that they don't get reduced to Sega, where they don't make consoles anymore. We need an opponent for Sony.
Exactly.
It can't be Nintendo.
That's the big thing.
Right, and as of right now, it still sounds like Xbox will still be working on the hardware side things. They've always been known for pushing like the technical boundaries with their consoles, but the issue has always been the software. It doesn't stack up to Sony's, level of first party IP stuff, or the stuff that we are getting isn't the same quality as what you get on like Nintendo, for example.
Right.
So if we have players benefiting from more choices, whether they own a PlayStation, Nintendo, or even a PC, they can still get high quality Xbox games. The flip side of that is, can Xbox still retain value just through Game Pass and having better hardware? Because it needs to be a two-way street in my mind. It's not going to be that way. Like if I have to choose between a PlayStation or Xbox, there's no reason for me to get an Xbox because I can't play PlayStation games. It's not going to be flipped. At least there's no word of any of that yet. Right. I would choose PlayStation because then I can still get my Xbox games. Again, the flip side of that being you get much better value with Game Pass. That's not been a secret. It's a great value to some really cool stuff. There's games that I wouldn't have played if it wasn't for Game Pass. But then,
how crazy would it be if Sega and Microsoft just had a baby and called it the XCast? That'd be crazy.
I don't know. That sounds like a website that may be banned here before too long. I don't know if you can
Dreambox.
I mean, we're already seeing a little bit of it. Like, I know there's a couple people in chat talking about, but Last of Us Part 2 is coming to PC. So, I mean, we're starting to see movement as, industry wide. We're seeing that shifting. But like I said, this was just a little thought experiment just to be like, hey, Microsoft is making a clear move to like service first, but still not forgetting where they're coming from. Where does that lead the industry?
I never thought about that actually. Like the Sony games going on PC is like the equivalent exchange of like Xbox games going on other consoles.
Exactly. I mean, with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Final Fantasy 16.
I think ultimately it's just like sell more games and have it more available to everybody. Everybody wins, because
that was the thing too. The little bit that I got to for my part work on that part of things, like the amount of dev studios that are under their umbrella, if they were able to make the games that we were again kind of sold on, with them being brought on, if we got those games, like this wouldn't be as big of a concern. But projects being what they are, cost of game dev what it is, it's just not the same as what it used to be, and we gotta be okay with that. So little thought experiment before you leave, just remember future of exclusivity. Could we see a future where game exclusivity becomes a thing of the past, or do you think certain titles will always remain platform specific? Think about that for next time.
I think console wars are over, honestly. It's about games now. I think that's where it's at. So I don't know. I hope everybody wins because I want more games. That's all that matters. So, no way. That's right.
Jesus.
All right. Thanks, Nick.
Cool.
Appreciate it.
I love it.
Appreciate it. Let's go. All right. Time to get dirty and knuckle dust up for the tech. We got. Oh, wrong one. Boop. Let me add this window here. There we go.
All right. Well, class, welcome back to more Dynasty Warriors Origins. Y'all know I was going to be talking about this again, but seeing as how we've already gone through 2 of the starting weapons in the game, the third one that you actually wind up getting is one that I skipped over because if I decide to do that one, then the segment would be way too long, especially for how much time we got left on the podcast. But today, we're actually going to be covering they call it the wheels, but basically, the chakrams. This weapon distinguishes itself compared to the sword and compared to the spear in that you can utilize a lot more tactical placement with your strong attacks. Allow me to demonstrate. We return to the theater of the mind. But I'm sure y'all will remember these weapons from, how Sun Shang pretty much mained these since Dynasty Warriors 3.
Jago says, so they made you Xena.
Yes. In a lot of ways,
As
yes.
long as I can hear the battle cry, that's all I care about.
But
And then the Wonder Woman theme after that.
But just, taking a look with your normal attacks, you still got some rather wide range and some rather, sweeping attacks with those blades. But what you end with is actually throwing them out. And you'll see that they actually stay out for quite a while.
Oh, wow. That's new.
But if you hit the strong attack button, if you hit the charge attack button, you hit triangle, like if you time it to where you hit triangle as you catch the blades, then you'll actually get an advanced version of whichever strong attacks you use.
That's cool. So they made this moveset a little bit more unique than the other weapons.
Yep. Now, see them flying back? Boom. And that red aura around the blades when you do the attacks is the indicator that you actually got the timing right. But again, as you level the blades up, you can actually get it to where they stay out on the field for quite some time, just, doing passive damage or, generating passive income for you as you're over there, taking out other officers or, dealing with other parts of the battlefield. And there are certain special moves that come with these, which will do the same thing. Like some where you can, throw out the rings and it'll like gather a group of enemies and pull them to you.
Whoa.
Or, ones where you get some distance. And then you have, what was it? Let me go ahead and rebuild my special meter real fast. And boom. Let's let them come back in real fast.
Boxer themes? Come on. We fighting here, man.
And then there's one special move that you actually get, like, I think near the start of the skill tree. Or you literally throw one of the rings up in the air and it drops like a targeted satellite beam kind of drop on your target to do damage and keep them locked down. This is very much a space control based weapon.
The ancient Chinese weapon of space chakrams.
Bladed frisbees.
So are you do the weapons have different like models?
Yeah, the weapons do have different models as you get, further in the game and you get some of the more advanced weapons. Stop that.
Cool.
And I mean, even the defensive charge attack for this weapon. Again, it's another one where you throw the rings out and they stay out for a while. And, if I had timed it right, you could actually get a stronger variant where they stay out even longer. And you can, like, if you play your cards right, you can actually chain those enhanced strong attacks together to just dish out large amounts of continuous damage where, again, you can go into it with a sort of set it and forget it kind of mindset.
This weapon's a little bit more technical than the other two that we've talked about then.
Very much so. And even when you go into, like, even just going into, triggering the War God Rage and getting, the infinite bravery, so you can just keep casting your abilities. When you've got all that time and all that resources, all that meter to spend.
I love that
It's
where the
literally a
chakras just
matter of
like
just
in the background, like exploded like a meteor out of nowhere, like nowhere near anything. Just a bunch of dudes got taken out.
Yep.
That's the Hammer of Light in China. You know what it's called? Hammer of Dawn. Hammer of Dawn, not Hammer of Light.
Amber
boy.
Light had a giant beam though. That was badass. That was just like, it looks like someone dropped a bomb on him.
And there we go. That one.
By the way, G for my gaming challenge is Gears of War Tactics.
That's going to be an interesting one to check out.
Yeah. It looked like XCOM with Gears of War aesthetics. I'm all for it.
Sounds like fun.
I made a XCOM clip of Nick being one of my assault captains and shooting a mutoid in the face. It was pretty great.
That is badass.
Yeah, I do miss Gears of War a lot. That's another one of those Xbox titles that I just would like to see the next iteration. I can't wait for E-Day. Like that is such a smart move after like the fatigue of like 5 and 6. Like, not that they were bad games, but it just like I felt like I needed something else, and E-Day fills that.
See, that's a great example of what we just talked about. Where do we take the series after it's done, right? In this case, they made a prequel leading up to the first game, which I think is a smart thing to do because there was definitely some lore before that.
Well, even smarter, like that, the story of 6 was still ongoing. It just felt like it had gotten to a natural point where it's like, hey, let's reassess. What can we do with this? Let's refresh it. Let's do something,
Yeah.
Makes sense. But yeah, that being said, though, as far as what's going on with the weapons in Dynasty Warriors, I mean, we've already covered the basics as far as the gameplay system itself. So now these weapon deep dives can be a lot more concise. Just if you pick up Dynasty Warriors Origins and you decide to try out the rings for the first time, just keep in mind that locking down the space around you with the rings that you throw out, that is the name of the game. That and keeping your eye on timing for strengthening your next attack. So that way you can dish out even more damage and have even more efficient space control. Very tactical weapon setup, but
space control. A lot of fun. How appropriate for what Nick just said earlier. Comes for space. That's awesome. Awesome, man. That is the tech. Love it. We need to get you a jingle for the tech, dude. What do you like? Let's go. Yeah, how about that one? No, apparently Smash TV a lot. So.
I was about to say either that or get one of the announcer sounds from Third Strike.
Oh, you know what? I've been looking for that because I wanted the one that Nick says all the time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. I want to mash that. Yeah, that makes sense. Makes sense. Awesome. All right, so
I've got that in a GIF, and that is one of my favorite ones to always rely on when someone sends me something like, "Yeah, that makes sense."
Yeah. All the distorted sound of that too. It's really great. All right, so as always, I want to give you guys an update on the A to Z Gaming Challenge on Now Playing.
D is for Doom.
Last week, I definitely started Doom 2016, and man, this is a video game as a video game. So it was the first time me booting it up for myself. I've seen it online all over the place, the glory kills, right? Stuff like that. The weaponry is the game. The weaponry is so fun to kind of mix it up. And I played a similar game like this with Shadow Warrior 3. Doom is definitely a lot more serious than that game. And definitely a lot more polished too. So I am excited to play more. I just finished the first 2 levels. And it's just like, all right, what's next? What's next? How do we? And I'm trying to figure out how to do glory kills from different angles too. And I don't know if there's like a fixed number amount, but man, it's all of it is just me exploring and blasting demons and just picking up collectibles. I feel like I'm back to like 1995 playing the OG Doom with just better graphics, right? But it just honestly feels like a good old time playing a video game. There's no huge like, big cutscenes where I'm sitting there for 2 hours, right? No deep narrative. The story is there and it gives it to you like this. And it's enough to a point where you're like, I want to see what happens next. And then you have fun doing that, getting to that next point. The last game I played, I talked to you guys about Trek to Yomi, which was good narrative but bad gameplay. Doom is actually quite a supplement to that by changing it up. Like this one, they did it right. The gameplay made me want to go to the next cutscene, but enjoy it at the same time. Trek to Yomi, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go through this and not excited to play, but then just so I can see the next part, right? So, but Doom, I'm enjoying every second of it, every minute of it. So,
I'm really glad that you're enjoying that. That's one of those games that I really hope people check out if they are even not a fan of like Doom, just because of how technically impressive it is. There's two things I really want to shout out about this title, and this is why I'm so glad you're seeing it. In private chat, I sent you a link. No Clip did a documentary on Doom 2016 and like Doom Resurrected. It's a 3-parter. It is fantastic. I highly recommend it if you're interested to hear about, especially if you're a fan of like the old school Dooms and just seeing, how they were paying homage to it and where the series went and just how passionate these people are about that game, and it really shows. But the other part of it is the soundtrack for Doom, and Mick Gordon, what he did for that soundtrack is probably best in industry, in my opinion, still to this day. It is so perfect for this title. And there was I think Ray Sevick was a content creator who, I'll find the link for that as well, for that YouTube video. But if you're a fan of like video game music, watch his little mini doc on that, because hearing about the technical prowess that went into designing that soundtrack is next level. It is crazy what Mick Gordon did for this. It's one of the few ones that, as you're playing, the music changes responding to what you were doing in game. That's why it hits so hard and it feels like it's going right in tune or beat for beat with what you're doing. He built it in like segments that, depending what you're doing, the music reacts to it as you're playing. And just seeing that and then going back and playing the game again, like I hope you're able to like appreciate that, just because it is so crazy and it's just so amazing that this game did that, and it just hits so much harder because of it.
Oh yeah.
yeah, I do appreciate it because like Mick Gordon also did the soundtrack to Killer Instinct, and it's exactly how it works. The soundtrack reacts to your gameplay as well. You're saying, Ace?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that like Mick Gordon is, the best way I could describe his work is that he is very much a prodigy of dynamic soundscaping.
Yeah, and if whoever did the Metal Gear Revengeance audio, also that guy needs a raise. Also, it's pretty good. All right, Jacob's gonna send me that link. Awesome. Yeah, no, so far great experience. Yeah, it's kind of funny. The way I feel when I play this game is very similar to when I play SimCity 3000. Now you might ask me, GQ, why is that? These are two different games. And I say, you're right. And they are two different games. But the difference is I'm vibing and chilling out while being the administrator for a city and designing it. But in Doom, I'm destroying demons. And for some reason, it just hits the same. So I guess a city worker and a Doom destroyer, a Doom Slayer is relatively the same job. So no, while I'm kind of vibing on jazz and Doom, I'm dishing out to like EDM and heavy metal, which is pretty great. The choose your poison kind of thing, and I feel relaxed when I'm playing Doom and having fun. So that's what's like. It's like going back to what's the point of playing video games? Having fun, right? The original reason why you play video games.
If it's not fun,
yeah, why are we even playing it?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
James, if you don't mind, I put in the Restream private chat those two YouTube links.
Yeah,
if you don't mind sharing it, because I can't share it.
Coming up. All right, so links on there too. But yeah, all good for me, and it's like I can't wait to play Eternal. Also, like you got Eternal's a sequel, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna do that on stream, but I definitely want to be able to play that for like story wise, and I just pre-ordered Dark Ages. Ironically, I didn't even know Dark Ages was coming out in March. I think it's May, right? But I just chose Doom to play this year just because I haven't played it yet, and I think it's a great bonus point that Dark Ages will be coming out in May as a prequel, which is interesting, and you get a cool Captain America shield with it too. So super excited to play that. But you guys, any changes in your gaming in the past week?
For me, I have actually, taken a bit of a step back. Like even though I've been streaming Dynasty Warriors to try and play through the rest of the Woo campaign, so that way I could get to the credits. I'm still playing because I'm very much enjoying the game, but I'm also trying to hit a point where I can actually like really stop and assess the game as well. Sit down and review it. But other than that, I've actually taken a bit of a step back and started picking up some of my PS4 and PS5 backlog. So I went back and did a small run on Streets of Rage 4. I've actually been going back and playing Black Desert Online.
Oh, all right. The MMO route.
Yep. But other than that, it's mostly just finding, trying to find stuff where I can sit down and vibe, or stuff that's quick drop in, drop out gameplay.
Nice, pick up and play as they call it. Yeah, you'll be busy in quarter one. Apparently, there's a lot of games coming out that's on the radar. So.
Welcome to 2001.
I'm definitely making myself busy with this A to Z gaming list, so. And games in between. Like the new season of Diablo 4 just started, so I'm grinding that out off stream. So definitely for that. What about you, Leet?
Metaphor is life.
I don't blame you. That thing sucks up lives.
Yeah, I haven't put as much time into games lately, just because I've been super busy, especially with the weekend for my birthday and just not being able to be online with work. So it's just one of those things that, because I don't have the time, same as Ace, it's just like I need something quick to pick up, put down, and just like feel the vibes. I actually finally picked up the Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy game. That came out, and because I keep hearing so many things about it, and a buddy of mine, shout out to Rob, is beside himself that no one else in the group of friends has played that game, because he swears by it, and I can see why. I've only been able to put like 10-15 minutes in, but I can already tell I'm going to really like it. But with the short amount of time that I have here and there, that's probably the next thing I'm going to play on before I go back to Metaphor and like dive deep. Because I just got my steelbook from Metaphor from Poland, of all places. So it's just like I'm excited for it. I love it, but it's not always.
You're dedicated to that steelbook collecting. I love it.
No, not as much as I used to be. But now I'm getting to that like bespoke part of my collection where it's like I will pay for the steelbook for the titles that I just really love. Or for something I really want to support. Like I got it for Veilguard because I love Dragon Age and I love the art on the steelbook. I'm like, okay, cool, easy decision. Metaphor was one where it's like, wow, this like really resonated with me, and I loved Persona 5, and I bought the steelbook for that. And I saw there was a steelbook that came with a map, and I'm like, perfect, nope, yeah, easy discussion. But I don't just like outright buy steelbooks as much as I used to.
Yeah,
but
I'm just not going to buy any steelbook.
Yeah, like I said, bespoke collection. Really important stuff.
All right. Any other orders of business before closing out tonight?
Nothing for me.
Chat, what you guys have? Otherwise, you're just going to hear the usual spiel from your headmaster. None? Funny enough, I was playing One Finger Death Punch 2 just for fun. Andre said, Marvel Rivals for me, and I started Crow Country today. That's not like that Resident Evil 1 game, right? That's like all polygonal. Metal Slug Attack Reloaded has been my tower defense game, and I've been playing Wargroove to learn openings, says Jagos. Hey, we just talked about Wargroove. That's funny. Besides getting salty about Cobra Kai, you've been playing Xenocrisis, and that is on my list as well. So I am excited to play it. Jagos is all about showing me Xenocrisis, so I'm excited. So that's pretty cool. All right, so with that said, let's get to the monologue as always. Okay, there we go. This song just brings back lots of memories. That's all I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Regardless if you played it or not, it's still a good song. So awesome. Once again, always a pleasure to have you guys here. But that is another wrap for another episode of the Gaming Academy. We appreciate you always. What a ride tonight, reminiscing on the legendary PS2, breaking down the latest gaming news with Nick, geeking out over Dynasty Warriors Origins with Ace, and of course, diving into some wild retro gaming ads that more to come on the next episode. But before we go, I want to leave you with this. Just like in gaming, life gives us checkpoints, challenges, and moments where we have to level up. Whether you're grinding through the daily grind or facing a boss fight in real life, remember, every respawn is a new opportunity. Keep learning, keep pushing forward, and never be afraid to press start on something new. Thank you for tuning in. Whether you're here live or catching the VOD, we appreciate you. Your support means the world to us. And I can't wait to do it all again next time and next week. Until then, stay safe, stay awesome, and as always, keep gaming and keep growing. GG's everyone, and see you next time. Appreciate
Thank you.